Hello, I'm Pip Courtney. Welcome to A Taste of Landline, where we take you across the country to see the very best in food, fibre and more. On the show today, a Bradman scoring runs in the paddock.
He wouldn't care if I was a farmer or an astronaut, but I think he would want to see me conduct whatever I did with the sort of values that he conducted his life with.
The young Jillaroo capturing life in the outback.
You just can't beat it. You go for rides sometimes or, walking cattle out, and there's so many moments that I've had that you're just like, I'm getting paid for this. Like, this is so cool.
And snail ranching.
You've got to be very vigilant here, and you've got to get them before they attack you.
Hello, I'm Kerry State on the Fleurieu Peninsula in South Australia. When you hear the name Bradman, this field is probably not what springs to mind. But this is where the cricketing great's grandson has chosen to make his mark. A lone light just before first light signals the start of Tom Bradman's day, and the end for some of his pasture-raised poultry.
It's a way of producing chicken which I think is far better for the landscape. And I think I give the chickens a great life, except for their one bad day up to the abattoir.
It's a reality of farming livestock that Tom Bradman was exposed to at an early age, with his grandmother and father both passionate about food production.
I grew up on a small farm. It was really a hobby farm. We hardly needed to go to the shop when I was a kid. We grew everything ourselves. We made our own dairy products, and I milked a cow when I was young and got everything from the vegetable garden. So I think I got a fair taste for it.
When it came time to turn that youthful hobby into a commercial reality on his own 160-hectare property in South Australia, Tom started with poultry, buying his chicks when they're a day old.
Although we grow them out for a bit longer than some conventional systems, it's still a very quick turnover. It's good cash flow.
After a comfortable kickstart in the toasty brooder, the toddlers are shifted into a nearby paddock. And this is where Tom's grow-out system is unconventional, if not unique. Instead of raising his chickens in big sheds, he's set up a series of bottomless pens that he moves every morning, forcing the 70 or so chickens in each onto fresh pasture, which he says is more natural.
Yes, it's not natural to have that number of chooks on that area, and that's not what we're saying when we're talking about mimicking natural systems, but we're looking for clues of how to run things in an ecologically sound way by looking at natural systems. And movement of animals from one place to the next is a really, really important part of that.
While the chooks rely on grain for 80 to 90% of their diet, he says they make a decent meal off the floor cover. And what's left behind after the foraging feeds the land too.
The grass that comes up behind it is absolutely magic stuff. It's amazing. I mean, you pull them off a bit of country and give it a little bit of rest, a little bit of rain. And I mean, there are all sorts of species coming up on that bit of ground that weren't there before.
This constant movement has also inspired the name of the business, Nomad Farms, with Tom Bradman steering clear of using his famous surname.
I don't think the Bradman name's played a single part in me developing Nomad Farms. And that's sort of been nice. I take the good with the bad, and there's both things about having the name Bradman. I'm certainly incredibly lucky in my life, and I'm not going to complain about any of it. But there is both. This has just been completely independent, and that's quite nice.
Throughout his career at the crease, our Don Bradman spoke most emphatically with his bat.
Although the man that made the name famous has had some influence on his grandson's approach to work.
He wouldn't care if I was a farmer or an astronaut, but I think he would want to see me do or conduct whatever I did with the sort of values that he conducted his life with. And I think that's probably what he's passed to me more than anything else. And, they're values like integrity, honesty, humility, and doing something which you find fulfilling but which has some sort of positive contribution.
Helping fuel these ideas is Tom's wife, Verity Slee. But it's also been quite an adjustment for the former Melbourne-based public health worker.
I think most of my friends and family had bets on how long I'd last.
Hello, Poppet.
The principles and everything that kind of has guided Tom's vision for this place I really believed in and agreed with. But certainly I've been a vegetarian most of my life, and so moving to a property in South Australia where, producing meat is the main game was a bit of a challenge for me at first.
For the first nearly year that we were here, because we'd moved back to South Australia, she was on the end of a shovel next to me, helping to do everything, because we re-fenced and watered the whole place, and there was a lot of work that she did in that first year. But she helps keep me sane. She's just hugely supportive, and when I go off the deep end with a stupid idea or lament at something not working, she's just a fantastic leveller.
Look at the little chickens, Laura.
While the tight team now has a new player with the arrival of daughter Laura, they weren't exactly childhood sweethearts when they went to school together.
He certainly seemed to me to be quite a confident young man, and I think I was a bit of a young idealistic feminist in a way, and I thought, confident men were not something to be welcomed. So we didn't really get along that well. But when we re-met, I think I realised that we'd both grown up a little bit, and we certainly got along very well.
Hi Tom.
G'day Karina, how you going?
Well, thank you.
I got some nomad chooks for you.
Oh, brilliant. I've got a new spring dish in mind that they're going to be perfect for.
I've heard people say that chefs are hard to deal with, and I won't name their names, but I've just had a very positive experience. I love dealing with them. I'd love learning more about our product from them.
Karina Armstrong is one of Tom's most loyal customers, won over by the flavour and texture of the meat.
There's a differential between the leg meat and the breast meat. The leg meat's much richer, it's darker, and the breast meat is beautiful, succulent. It's like you want chicken to taste.
And while some diners are reluctant to order chicken because it's such a common protein at home, she says this poultry and the story behind it is winning them over too.
We get such a good response to the chicken dishes, and I think people want to know where their food's come from, how the animal's been treated, and what environment it's come from.
Back on the farm, with the added protection of Banjo the Maremma, the producers are taking the next step to improve that living environment, opening up the pens during the day. Although so far, these chooks haven't roamed far.
They're quite sedentary animals. They're bred to sit around and get plump.
The diverse and interactive nature of this farm doesn't end there. Tom Bradman also runs a small herd of cattle on his and neighbouring properties. Like the chickens, they're constantly moved onto fresh grass, with a new patch of pasture every couple of days. And after 2.5 years of grazing, his beef is starting to trickle onto the market.
Cattle are hugely important to me and to our operation. they're amazingly restorative and regenerative for country if they're managed well. And, yeah, I just love cattle. I mean, I say to people I raise chickens to support my beef habit, which is not that far from the truth. There's no doubt that being outside and, interacting with animals and, it's an amazing office to have. Yeah, what do they say? You do the job you love for half the money and you wouldn't do the job you hate for double the money. So here I am doing it for half the money.
There's been a transition. My father was probably the last generation was still trying to conquer nature. I'm sort of something of an interim generation. And David's generation is trying to save the planet.
Through social media now you can connect with farmers all over the world and everyone's so helpful. It's great and you sort of get pushed along.
Now to a story about a young ringer on a remote cattle station who bought a second-hand camera to take photos for her mum and dad. Little did she know those photos would soon be seen by thousands of people, shining a spotlight on station life. 2 years ago, 18-year-old Emma Moss left her home in Queensland and drove 4,500 kilometres across the country. She'd taken a job on a remote cattle station in WA's Kimberley region, something she dreamt of doing since she was 13.
I always knew that I wanted to come up north. I think, my friends' brothers and sisters, they were coming up north, seeing photos, hearing stories, and then through bush recruitment, I got a job.
Emma, who grew up on a 40-hectare hobby block outside Toowoomba, planned a gap year working as a ringer on Nerima, a 200,000-hectare station.
We muster, process the cattle in the yards, draft, vaccinate, do everything like that, get ready to truck them if they need to, walk them back out to the paddock, and then besides the cattle work, which takes up a good percentage of the year, we've got to do maintenance stuff. So we do a lot of fencing, but then build verandas or plumb toilets or paint or whatever needs to be done, really.
She can now weld, shoe a horse, do an oil change on a ute or motorbike, and ride outback style.
I've kind of always grown up with horses, just pony club stuff, so not this Western camp drafting thing. And so that was different. That was also another new thing to learn, which I loved. I probably will use that now for the rest of my life.
At Nerima, Emma bought a second-hand camera from the station cook, Dan McIntosh. Known to all as Cookie, has been feeding hungry workers in outback wool sheds and stock camps for more than 30 years.
Well, in the camp I do all the cooking and that, and every now and then I duck over the yards if I need a hand or anything over there, They love their tucker and that. I believe if you work hard, you feed them hard.
But that's not the only thing this knockabout has on the boil.
Never in a million years would you think that it'd become a book.
An acclaimed photographer who's published 2 books, his Facebook page has more than 122,000 followers. Cookie gave Emma some tips.
Kind of just started off just taking photos just so that I could have them to show my parents and, have on my computer, but it turned out that I had a bit of an eye for it, I guess.
She set up an Instagram page called Life on a Station. After a year, she had over 7,000 followers, including a clothing company in the US which offered sponsorship.
Heaps of people messaging me like, oh, where can I go to find a job? Where should I apply? I think it's opened people up to seeing what's up here because it's such a, not secretive, but it's such an unknown area, which is crazy because of how big it is. Yeah, it's a really cool lifestyle, and I think more and more people kind of want to have a piece of it.
She loves the vastness of the Kimberley and its light.
You just can't beat it. Just seeing literally as far as the eye can see, nothing's blocking it. You know, you go for rides sometimes or, you know, walking cattle out and the sky is pink and purple and like it's just, I don't know, there's so many moments that I've had that you're just like, I'm getting paid for this. Like, this is so cool.
For school leavers, especially girls, heading up north is an increasingly popular gap year adventure. Emma's heard young women and their parents nervous about working up north get peace of mind from her photos. Matt Woods runs Blina Station near Derby. He says Emma's photos show camaraderie, the staff's connection with cattle, dogs and horses, and lots of fun at and outside work.
I think it's fantastic. We're always looking for staff, constantly searching for new people to come in the industry, and you know, the bigger the pool, the easier my job will be. So being able to, you know, have some exposure to people who would otherwise not know we exist is certainly an advantage.
There's a trend in the north. More women than men are applying for jobs.
The horses are a big attraction to young girls, and also, you know, when they see these shots that Emma's taking of some beautiful picturesque landscapes and action shots all happening in amongst it and the dust, it's certainly, you know, a lot of the girls kind of think, wow, this is actually out there somewhere. Currently, it has been as high as 9 girls to 1 man, and now it's sort of back around sort of 6 or 7 to 1. And I think that, you know, with Instagram, etc., girls are certainly going to make more and more influence on the place.
Matt Wood says it's not hard to get women, it's hard to keep them, as not enough see a career in it.
And, you know, that crack even the hardest and most enthusiastic people. So it's not all Skittles and beer, and people have to accept that and realise that, you know, what we ask a lot of our staff and they're treated well, but the physical work required is also very demanding and they have to be up for that challenge.
When you're having a bad day and it's 40 degrees and you've got a few mad cows trying to slam you into a rail, sometimes, you know, that can get you a bit, but there's enough moments in it and enough great people for you to go, like, this is why I'm here, and it just makes it worth it at the end of the day.
Through her photography, Emma's shown life on a station to a young, social media savvy generation. And she has a message to young women wondering if a gap year station adventure is for them.
If you want to absorb as much knowledge and as much of the landscape and amazingness as you can, go for it. Just try your best, go your hardest all the time, and yeah, definitely, I reckon, do it.
Snails are often associated with restaurants in France or the bottom of a grain farmer's boot. But they're the main attraction at a farm in South Australia set up for people living with dementia.
Now, Ian, what I want you to do is name the faces On this road trip, the challenges of dementia have been left at home. Memory games are just to pass the time.
That's Judy Garland.
During the 2-hour journey from Adelaide to Canalpin.
Oh, you know who she is. She's some pretty woman.
Julia Roberts.
The tiny town is making a name for itself thanks to some bold artwork and a lengthy story by Landline. But these visitors from Alzheimer's Australia are here to see something much smaller. It's a project that's taken 5 years to get off the ground. Now, this care farm is finally being visited by the people it's designed to help.
Care farm is a working farm that gets used for people with care needs instead of looking at their disability. Care farm looks at what they still can do.
About 10 to 15,000 snails now call this farm home. Keeping track of the exact number is tricky.
Well, there seems to be lots of babies now.
Grant funding turned Claudia's vision into reality. It's also helped employ a project officer, Narelle Sturm.
Oh, wow, that's My sister used to think it was great fun to chase me around the yard with snails, and I was so petrified of them. And now I've just really grown to love them.
People do think I'm a bit eccentric. They think we're a bit odd. They must think like, you know, those Dutch people come up with crazy ideas.
Snail whisperers.
The so-called crazy idea comes from a personal connection.
My dad was diagnosed with dementia a number of years ago, and by accident we came across a care farm in the Netherlands. Just changed him. He was very depressed after his diagnosis, didn't want to go out, didn't want to eat. And when he went to the farm, he was back to his old self again. And I thought, well, why isn't there anything like that in Australia? Thank you all for coming out, and today we're just going to...
Soon, it's time for everyone to get their hands dirty.
Yeah, they get much bigger than that.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, I can remember when I was young that we used to have a big snail.
Usually when they're diagnosed, they're in the prime of their life, really, 50 years, 50 to 60. They have children at home, they're still working, some have just retired, and then they get a diagnosis of dementia, and their whole life, basically crumbles. So people need to still feel like they've got a purpose in life and they're actually making a contribution to society. And this is why I love the care farm, because it actually achieves that.
That's enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
The snails are the same type you find in your garden. With their 14,000 teeth, the most of any insect or animal, they need plenty of plants to munch on.
This is like the Kokoda track.
Yeah, there's a little bit of practice.
Yeah.
Give you exercise.
These snails are also fed a grain and milk powder mix for extra calcium.
What's under here? Oh, hello.
I've seen guys come out that are a little bit reserved, not really sure about this farming idea and what we're going to be doing, and when they get out there, they think it's wonderful.
They're cute, aren't they?
They are.
It's called Andrew. It's very slow, this one.
While snails are almost completely deaf and blind, another important job of snail farming is rounding up any escapees.
You've got to be very vigilant here, and you've got to get them before they attack you. Anyone found one yet? Whoops. They do not respond well to being trodden on by 12 kilos.
This care farm isn't nearly as big as some of the ones operating in places like Europe. The plan is to expand it, but as operating costs go up, relying on grant funding won't be enough. So that means the snails are off to market.
We looked at ideas, toyed with different ideas about how we could actually get into that market, not only just through escargot, just purely through the snail meat, but other means, and that's where the idea of the pâté or the escargot paste came to mind.
So we tried a couple of recipes and served it here at a local show, and quite a lot of people actually tried escargot paste or snail pâté, and a lot of people actually liked it.
To make the pâté, the snails are cleaned, then purged and left to feed on Thai-style herbs with corn flour for about a week. They're placed in the freezer and put to sleep, ready to be boiled and blended.
So you can see that there's a bit of garlic mixed in as well and a bit of chilli as well. Is that
Chilli,
right? But
coriander.
it's a lot of the natural flavours though, isn't
It's
it?
beautiful, yeah.
Let's give it a try.
No worries.
Cheers.
Cheers.
It is a bit like mushroom, the same texture.
It's got a very earthy taste to it. And the Romans have been eating it. You know, Europeans have been eating it for centuries.
Australia needs to catch up, start eating snails.
Yeah. You want to taste some of the snail pâté?
Oh, yes.
I think it tastes a bit like mushrooms. It's very nutty.
The pâté goes down well with the visiting taste testers.
Tastes a bit snaily.
Snaily.
No, it's very nice.
Many hope it could be the key to keeping the farm going.
Aren't you a pretty boy? Or girl?
It's amazing when you look around and you see it actually, it has become reality. You know, in the beginning, it was just a crazy idea. And now it's heartwarming to see that.
And that's the show. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more from all the team, check out our Landline Facebook page, where there's plenty to keep you entertained. Next week, Food Bank, the extraordinary charity supported by generous Australian farmers.
We get that double win. We're helping people, and that's the most important thing, and it's no net cost to us.
And more of those stunning Tassie tulips.
We had about 2,500 people through yesterday. It's our biggest day for the Blooming Tulip Festival, which we put on with the town. That's just huge.